career journey is probably a little different than most product executives. I actually started as a financial analyst for a real estate investment trust. And then I have a finance background went in there. So then I moved, it wasn't until after grad school that I moved into tech. So I started at Cisco Systems, was part of a rotational program, which really exposed me to various parts of the business. And this is where I always sort of tell people, product found me. This is where I sort of got bit by the startup bug too. Working there, I actually worked for a spin-in company that the company acquired, and it was a small shop that did, and within 2 years, the acquisition grew to over $1 billion run rate there. So massive thing, but very cool experience. Moved on to Microsoft, worked on a number of different products at the company. Started in their cloud services, actually built up their app marketplace. There, moved to corporate strategy, so did a tour of duty there, worked on a lot of far future sort of R&D concepts, to biz dev, to corporate development projects, and then that led me to mixed reality, where I got exposed to some creative workflows in there, and then led to how data in the real world can augment and optimize human beings, right, in sort of their day-to-day. So but yeah, I've spent the majority of my career working on sort of new stage and new venture products, and made a ton of sense to pursue that in the startup space. So like I said, I've worked at early stage ventures for a lot of my career, but it wasn't until and I really enjoyed working in sort of that skunk work early stage piece, but it wasn't until I had a very large, I was presenting actually a new technology concept to Microsoft's board, specifically the technical advisor on the board, the company's CEO of this new concept. And people love the concept. It got funded internally. And it was odd because as excited as my management was around this, I kind of was not, because it was, just the idea was accepted, but it wasn't sold, it wasn't built, it wasn't in customers' hands, it wasn't being used. That was the stuff that got me really passionate, right? Not that someone liked an idea. So it was at that point where I was like, hey, it's probably time to leave, because it's just priorities are shifting as sort of my career to really want to have I would say a more tangible impact. And have that realized versus, someone thought a presentation was great, or liked an idea, or really liked a white paper, or, liked a demo, right, from that standpoint. I think one of the biggest challenges that I have sort of faced is hiring and finding the right people, as you build out a team. And I was in big tech, right? Microsoft, Cisco, we had a lot of people just passionately pursuing to work at these companies, right? And I think one of the things I've realized is that at startups, not a lot of people have that, these companies don't have the same recognition, right, on there. And so I've had to be much more proactive in terms of leveraging networks, to just being more active actually in the environment, right, around, to attract people to the company, really to find and hire the right talent, right, for what you're looking to build and grow. So I think for me, that's sort of been the biggest challenge, is making sure that we, find the right person versus just find somebody to fill a role for a temporary period of time. For me, no. And I think part of it too is just because I was exposed to this in some of the larger corporations of working with startups that have been acquired, or working on early stage ventures where it was, coming to Microsoft, I was put on a project where it was 2 developers, a marketing person, and myself. That was it. So it was just 4 of us working on this project, which we had to prove value to the company. We had a presentation to go in 6 months where we had to basically start to create a concept, develop it out, get feedback, and do it. So very similar to what startups are in that space of working there. So it wasn't a leap of faith. It was just, I think the biggest leap of faith is not having the protection of a large corporation over you, right? Where you have all the resources and tools there. You have to be a little bit scrappier in terms of, the tools you use, how much money you're spending, being just a little bit more aware of some of the decisions. One thing I was sort of pleasantly surprised with is a lot of the experiences have been similar in many ways. I think the things that have stood out is as being different. I just touched on this, but the resources not being as abundant. There, I know certain companies, a project didn't work, lots of money was spent on it, and it's like, okay, we'll sweep it under the rug. It was a failed experiment, right? At a startup, if you spent that amount of money, it didn't work, either you're probably not getting investment, the company may not be around much longer. So, just being much more aware of decision making. I think the things that are different too, in a good way, is that teams are much more collaborative and focused on similar goals and objectives. There's not competing priorities, right? Or fighting for any sort of shared resources. It's like everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing, and they're sort of operating, towards that share goal. Last thing too, I'd probably say is speed and pace. Probably not surprising to hear, in this, because that's always talked about there. Even working in, early stage ventures at big companies, speed was there, but it was also acceptable too at times to, be able to test and test for decisions. Where here it's, you quickly realize that speed matters in some of these startup, spaces, and many decisions do not require in-depth analysis, right? You don't need to test common sense. You don't need to do those things. And if something does fail, you just quickly learn from it and you just fail fast and address it. For me, I really haven't looked back after leaving a year and a half ago. I've really loved every minute of my experience. I love working with really hungry people, passionate people that are, really passionate about solving the same problems. I love the speed and agility, right? I'm a sort of I want to pretend I'm a researcher at heart there, but constantly experimenting, learning, testing, iterating on those concepts. And I think the thing that I really like the most is really the coaching element. I love to coach and mentor, and it's awesome to have teams that are super hungry, passionate to sort of learn. There's no agenda to it. They just literally want to get better at their craft and just get better every day. So I think like seeing the team grow has been super rewarding. So I think right now, I'll never say never, but right now I'm, pretty happy with my experience so far. Is just the speed at which your impact is realized from your work. At large companies, it's challenging to know kind of what your direct impact was, because so many people are involved, right? Where even in building software, right? Even if you're a developer, you don't know if it's your code that was used, someone else's code, it was done in review, how it was done, if it's changed, how requirements have shifted over time from a product perspective, all of those things. It's really hard to sort of tell, like, what was your direct impact on that? And then also too, just sometimes the speed of getting products out is not as fast. So just being able to see that much sooner has really been sort of an awesome thing to see. This may sound odd, but getting my hands dirty again in terms of execution, like going down. I love building products. I love shipping things to market. I love engaging with customers, seeing them use it, looking at the data, like diving into data there. So having smaller teams and, be willing to sort of get my hands dirty if work needs to get done and the team is, at its threshold of saying, I can take on something like that, which has kind of been a fun experience again of doing that. Kind of brought me back to why I got into products originally. So that's sort of been awesome to be able to do that. All right, so a couple things I have learned over the last year and a half would be, I think communication is one thing. And with regards to communication, it's kind of show, don't tell. So there's a lot of elements I may have glossed over just because I assumed there was knowledge of, where it's like, oh, I assume this is sort of common sense, and just kind of gloss over, but come back a week later and it seems like we really didn't understand what you meant by this. And so having to show them, right? So actually get in and actually show them, okay, here's how you use this tool. Here's the right way of writing a ticket for an engineer, to building a roadmap, to doing those things. So show, don't tell there. Also to be flexible. There's a lot of things I've sort of learned from that, where, there's not a one size fits all approach. So the ability to sort of listen to your team, to be flexible with approaches, like just because something worked somewhere else doesn't mean it's going to work here, right? So taking sort of that thought process around it. Last thing I'd probably say is, don't really seek risk in decision making, but work to mitigate it. All decisions have risk, and the decisions are there, but I think it's just that was really good advice I got on there. So I think just having that mindset of, don't look to prove there's a market, look to disprove it from that sense, and look to just mitigate, risk around decision making versus try to find the perfect solution to it. I would say enjoy the journey. The 25-year-old me was very hungry, very aggressive, very passionate to sort of, I would say, move up the corporate ladder there. And at times I didn't appreciate sort of the day-to-day, the fun of the team environments, just engaging with your peers, your colleagues on just some of the small things, right? Sometimes I would get caught up and sweat very small things or decisions where someone didn't agree with something and kind of be frustrated around that. But as you look back, it's like a lot of those frustrations really didn't matter, right? The journey's been fun, and looking back, I wish I enjoyed it a little bit more, right? Sort of the day-to-day, the challenges, the conversations that at times I thought were frustrating, but you look back and you laugh, and just some of the friends I've made over the time, which has just been a really just awesome experience of being in it. So I would say really enjoy the journey, enjoy just what's hand in front of you, the challenges, and when you look back, I think you'll have a lot more just enjoyment around everything that you've done and accomplished along the way.